spiritual awakened state, it's a totally different picture than what we experience when we're looking at it from our human self. The human self is always going to view it in linear time. The spiritual is not limited by linear time, and all of it's available to us. But you can't experience both realities at the same time. You got to choose one. As human beings, we, for the most part, live with a linear thinking mind, interpreting everything relative to this particular point in time. Right? From a human perspective, that would be the norm. From the spiritual, it's going to be different. Here's something else that Einstein said. He said, "I do not believe in a God of theology who rewards good and punishes evil." Which again would be, taking a unconditionally loving God and applying a human judgmental mind that's going to reward and punish. Well, Einstein saw the flaw in that kind of thinking, and this is why he thought religion was kind of childish, and I would be 100% in agreement with him. He said, "My God created laws that take care of his universe, and they're not ruled by wishful thinking, but by immutable laws." And many, many times in here, I talk about the dimensions of time and space, and all of this is controlled by laws. Those laws, self-regulating. There needs to be no judge. I don't have to judge. Is it going to fall when I let it go? You know what? I don't have to judge. It's going to fall every single time. And it doesn't matter whether I'm dropping this or I give it to my dog and my dog drops it, it's still going to fall. It has really nothing to do with who's doing the action. The law will always act out the way it's supposed to act out. And the laws within creation are self-regulating and they're always self-balancing, and it's going to happen. This dimension of time and space is going through a transition. It's going to happen. Whether we want to be awakened to our part in it, or we just want to kind of go through it blindly, it's going to happen. Change is going to happen here. It is happening. And it's not going to go back to what our minds would want it to be relative to this human point in time. Because there is an evolution in dimensions of time and space. There's an evolution of things happening here. And I don't know how, I'm going to go back and call this one the dream. Within the dream, there are laws. Over here, the awakened state, the awakened state is not subject to these laws. This is why Paul, if you read the Bible, Paul says this: "By the law, I am free of the law." Now later we'll get into that, what he meant by it. But he said, "By the law, I am free of the law." As long as you're looking at things from the human perspective, and you're going to judge it relative to our interpretation, you're going to be subject to these laws. The moment...
Can you give examples of, in the awakened state, what laws are what are we then not subject to?
Yeah, I would say the laws of karma.
We're no longer subject to laws of karma. What goes around comes around.
You're no longer subject to this law when you are moving from spirit.
Or is the law still in effect? It's just that you're in an awakened state. You're doing the right stuff. You're not. Well, you're doing the perfect thing. You're not doing the right thing. You're doing the perfect thing. There is a difference between right and wrong. Doesn't that then bring you perfect things, which means karma still is in effect?
No, because you're not even playing in this arena anymore.
No?
Now what I'm saying is this: from the awakened state, there are very, very few people that are conscious or cognizant of this side, or even believe in this side. Most of them believe in this. Most of them believe in, and on this side, good and evil. Good and evil is the name of the game for this side. Dualistic thinking. Good and evil is directly related to karma. They're very, very interwoven into one another. Good and evil is always balancing itself. Good and evil is always dualistic. On one side you got this, on that side you got that. Okay? Now, from unconditionally loving side, you're not gonna divide it up. You don't divide God into good and evil, because God is not subject to a limited view, and God isn't part of that. And spirit is perfect.
Perfected state, right?
It's the perfected state. Within the perfected state, there's no need for karma.
No need for it, but it doesn't have to be eliminated either, because you're not going to be putting out evil, so you're not attracting evil. You're going to be accepting what is,
Right?
and therefore
It's going to be a whole different set of the parameters are completely different than working through the evolution. In other words, you're now moving outside of evolving into being. Totally different state. Very, 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 very few people are interested in this at this point.
and it's really just jumping to the top of the evolution chain, or skipping all the steps and
Skipping all the steps and not even going to the top, but going outside of it.
Mhm.
In other words, spirit is not evolving, but is already evolved. We, as spirit, came from a perfected state. As human beings, or as egos, personalities, no one that I've encountered is walking in that perfected state as a personality. But within the core, each is perfect. And we'll get deeper into that as we, I think as we get deeper into the book, it's going to come a little bit clearer. I think we left off on page 45, right?
Second paragraph.
Second paragraph on page 45. We've only been at this now for 18 weeks or so, so we're moving. But anyway, I think we're going to get some more clarity about this point as we get deeper in. Second paragraph. While expanded in oneness. Now, this is what I was referring to when I said, while expanded into oneness, I was talking about that awakened state. Okay? When I'm talking about Jesus. Jesus was in the perfected awakened state where spirit was what he was living for, as opposed to his intellectual thinking mind. Now, we can flip back and forth. We can turn this on and off.
As you've said, he was affected by his human side. He had human moments, human frailties as well.
Yep.
So he did a lot better than most of us do, but it seems to be a matter of what percentage of, how much time we can get into the conscious state, or how close we can achieve that, and for how long, and how much, and
Yeah.
where he was very good at that.
Right. And what you just described is what's going to determine frequencies.
But then even Jesus, you wouldn't say was completely in the awakened state and not affected by any of the laws on the right side, correct? They still had some effect on him.
I would say they had effect on him, no question about it. And if you recall, if you read the Bible, you'll see how there were times when Jesus withdrew to go off and pray and meditate. Why? Well, when you are in this perfected conscious state, fully awakened, there's no need to go anywhere. There's no need to withdraw and recharge, if you will, and reconnect, because you're already there. Okay? So what he was demonstrating was, he was playing human and had moments of the awakened and moments of struggle, which is perfect. I mean,
But he was the example. He was showing you.
He was showing you
can live
how.
in the world, but you can also detach.
Exactly.
And live a spiritually awakened.
This is obtainable. This really, truly is obtainable. Now, most people don't believe it's obtainable. Our religions are not teaching us this is obtainable. Our religions are saying, well, you're a sinner, you'll always be a sinner, just accept you're a sinner and ask for forgiveness and you're forgiven. Well, no. Wake up to your perfection, let go of your attachment to the human view, and you experience your perfection. That's what Christ came here to teach us. And that's what we're going to talk about here. He was truly free in those moments when he remembered his real essence. But there were other times when his human mind, based on perception, caused him distress, which is what you're saying. It was at these times of struggle that Jesus found it necessary to remove himself from the company of others. He would do this in order to raise his vibration level up to the level of spirit through prayer and meditation. Now, Buddha did very, very similar. When Buddha, I guess, from what I read like 2 paragraphs about Buddha, but I remember reading that Buddha would go out and teach 9 months of the year and spend 3 months in isolation. Why? He needed to keep himself centered and focused. Because everyone, in our interactions in this world, we are all connected. Energetically, we're connected to everything, and we're connected to each other. And you can feel someone pulling on you at times. When you're truly connected, no one's pulling on you because spirit is moving through you. But when the ego comes into play, and we're trying to stay centered, people can pull on us, and we can get drained. We can get very, very drained, and we can need time to recharge. And prayer and meditation is that time and place to recharge, where we quiet the mind. If we let ourselves get absorbed in our human minds, and someone encourages us to do so, then we can get really, really down and sucked in to the point where, what happened? How did I get back here? You know? So anyway, yes, Jesus went off and meditated, reconnected. Buddha went off to meditate and reconnect. When Jesus struggled, he revealed his humanness, demonstrating that he did indeed have an ego. Then Jesus found it necessary to reconnect, testifies to the fact that he was not exempt from dealing with what I call original sin. What is original sin? The mind of man is original sin. In other words, looking at the world relative to our human self over our spiritual self. Now that encompasses everything. Everything and everyone. Everything and everyone can be viewed from the awakened state or through our judgmental mind. The difference between Jesus and other men was that he demonstrated to the world, that this world could be overcome. In fact, he did overcome it. And in John 16:33, he said, I said this to you, that in me you have peace. In the world you have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Now, to many Christians, they would interpret that, I'm saved because Jesus overcame the world. No. Far from it. Jesus overcame it, but what did you do? Did you overcome it? If you didn't overcome it, you're not going to have the experience Jesus had. How could you? You're going to have your experience, not Jesus' experience. So this is where a lot of confusion comes into play from a Christian standpoint. You know, when Christians think, oh, Jesus overcame the world, I'm saved. No. That doesn't equate. It doesn't transfer that way. Thus Jesus became the perfect example for anyone to emulate. It is for you to choose to live your life with his elevated state of consciousness, or to continue your experience in hell. And I call this hell. And I meant this as hell. It is hell. Not for everyone at every given moment, but it is hell.
And heaven.
And heaven for someone who's over here, the moment you wake up, the moment you experience the true perfected self in you and in others and everywhere, of course you're in heaven. What would heaven be? Heaven would be no separation between you and God and the whole. So the moment we pull ourselves out of this state of consciousness, you're back into some form of hell. In Matthew 10:28, and do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. That's exactly what we're talking about. Here Jesus is saying, don't fear somebody who kill the body. They could kill the body, but if I'm awake, they can't touch me. But if someone can encourage me into accepting the illusions and all of the garbage that the human judgmental mind would look at as their reality, boom, I'm lost. I'm sucked right back from here to here. I went from this state of consciousness to this one. And it happens to us on a regular basis. That's why Paul said, I die on a daily basis. And if we look at this scripture, it's very interesting that it says this. Rather fear him who can kill both the soul and the body in hell. You see how he's saying in hell? He didn't say kill the body and soul on this earth and send you to hell. But in hell, meaning here you are. You're in it.
But no one can truly kill the soul. You're just talking about a temporary,
metaphorically speaking. Temporary shift.
Regression or back down into hell.
Temporary shift of consciousness. It's a metaphoric expression here. We're not talking about literally killing the soul. No one can kill the soul.
So there really is no entity to fear like the devil who can do this kind of thing.
No.
Just have these temporary lapses and sink back into something. Really.
Exactly.
Drag your frequencies down.
Exactly. We shift from one state to another state. Now, again, it's a metaphor representing life to death. Okay, but is death permanent? Death is not permanent. Death is an illusion.
So we're just talking about bummers, right? People drag us down.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Drag down our, give us bad vibes.
Suck you right in.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter, who that person is or what they're doing. This is one of the reasons why when Jesus was trying to explain this, and he said, someone slaps his cheek. Well, the natural human reaction would be you hit him back, right? Someone hits you, you hit him back. What would happen? You'd go from this state to this state instantly.
Real quick.
Just instantly. But someone slaps his cheek, and I'm here, and I maintain my level of consciousness. Here, you can't touch me. No, you can't touch me. But you get sucked in, and you respond. They got you. So I died again. That's why Paul said, I die on a daily basis. You can die. That's the death. I wake up. Oh, I'm awake. I'm alive. I'm asleep. I'm awake. I'm asleep. I'm awake. We go through this. It seems like it's never-ending game that we play. Okay, life and death, life and death, life and death. Awake and asleep. But most people don't think in terms of life and death this way. They're thinking in terms of the body. They're thinking when the body dies, I'm dead. And they're thinking, well, my body's walking and talking, I'm alive. No, not so. Not so, no. Christ began by teaching the initial steps, the foundation upon which the understanding of unconditional love is built. When asked where to begin, he instructed men to live righteously and to follow the commandments as a guide for human life. As a guide. It's a good beginning. It's a guide. Guideline. The commandments are only necessary to guide you until you develop your awareness to a greater reality. And I say that because of this. The times that we're in our dream state and we're looking at things through our judgmental mind with good and evil. Okay? Everything we interpret now through the perceptual, thinking, judgmental mind, I'm going to evolve to varying degrees of how I interpret. And there are times when I may grow a little spiritually in the evolution. You know, I used to see something one way, now I see it a little bit different. Now my heart's a little bit more open, and I'm not quite so judgmental, and I treat this person a little different than I used to. I evolved. Okay. Well, that's one way. Now, when we look at it from this state, I don't have to judge anymore. Judgment is no longer a part of who and what I am if I am awakened spiritually. And this is the reason why I say you are exempt from karma when you get to that stage. Good evening.
This is Chris.
Chris. Nice to meet you, Chris.
You're winding?
Welcome.
Okay, I gotta drop off the hat and I'll be right back.
So we're just going, where were we? we're getting into
Law of karma.
we're getting into the laws of karma a little bit, and we're talking about moving outside of the laws of karma. And I was just talking about how Jesus came here really to teach man to do just that, to live in a perfected state. Now, many of us are not quite ready at times to live in our perfected state, and so we'd rather choose to go through the evolution step by step and become better. And so there's two tracks that we can take. One is to move in increments and evolve spiritually, and step by step by step. The other is to transcend our own judgmental mind and let spirit use us on a day-to-day. Now, not many people are ready for just, laying down. This is what Jesus was referring to when he said, there's no greater gift you can give to your brothers and sisters than to lay down your life for them. That's what he was referring to. Not putting a gun to your head or, drinking some Kool-Aid and disappearing. No, it's living in the world from the conscious state. That's what laying down your life means. And I was talking about karma a little bit, and when we talk about karma belongs to the laws within the evolutionary system. There are laws. I began by reading something that Einstein wrote, which I thought it was perfect for what we're going to talk about tonight. And Einstein said this: he didn't believe in a God of theology who rewards good and punishes evil, but his God created laws that take care of themselves, and the universe is not ruled by wishful thinking, but by immutable laws. In other words, it's self-regulating, takes care of itself. And I'm in direct agreement with the way in which he phrased that, and this is exactly why Jesus came into this world and said, the Father. Now, our Father, our Creator, is unconditionally loving. Now, as an unconditionally loving entity, we'll call it, there is no room for reward and punishment. Reward and punishment has to be based upon a judgmental mind. Otherwise, you wouldn't know who to reward and who to punish. You'd have to look and say, well, you've been good, you've been bad, you've been this, you've been bad, and so here's your reward, here's your punishment. Well, God doesn't dole out rewards and punishment. There is such a thing as karma, though.
You dole it out yourself.
Yeah,
Bingo.
we dole it out ourselves, and we attract experiences to ourselves based upon choices we make. That's what karma is all about. It's a system of self-regulation.
It's like a magnet.
Like a magnet, yeah. What you put out, you're going to attract. Now, that's the simplified version, because there's also, within the system, there's the evolution of consciousness, where what's coming to us is never to punish us. That, the whole concept of punishment stems from a human judgmental mind. What comes to us from a human perspective may seem at times to be negative experiences. Now, the Bible would tell you all things, doesn't say with the exception of this one thing, all things work for good for those who love God. Now, for those who love God, meaning for those that are working towards experiencing the perfected state within all of us, which is unconditional love. We all have that at our core. We may not express it on a day-to-day, but it's part of our makeup. It's who and what we are, because we come from that. That is that. God is unconditionally loving. Perfect, perfect, perfect. It's within all of us. So anyway, that's kind of a little foundation to bring you a little bit closer to where we are. And I was just getting into, talked about the commandments and why these were guidelines for us to follow. I'm going to repeat that at the beginning of that paragraph. The commandments are not only necessary, the commandments are only necessary to guide you until you develop your awareness to a greater reality. If there was one thing that set Jesus apart from others, it was his awareness of the greater self that exists beyond the material. In other words, Jesus at most times was conscious and awake enough to recognize, well, when he said, I and the Father are one. In that moment, that's what he was referring to. He was pretty much awake to make that statement. Everything in this world has the potential to pull your attention and to keep you from seeing beyond it. Right? Almost everything in the world. That is why Jesus, like other masters taught us to live without attachments. From a view looking at it relative to our human experience, anything in this world that we look at that pulls our attention to the point where we forget our spiritual connection, that thing can be a huge problem for us. When I was growing up, I remember hearing, and I heard it over and over, and I'm sure most of us have heard this, money is the root of all evil. Well, later on, after having an experience of seeing the greater picture, I read the Bible for myself for the first time, and I read the words, the love of money is the root of all evil. Not the money. Of course, money's not evil. What kind of thing? But the moment we look at it and we give it a meaning, we got a problem. Whether we look at it from the position of having money is a problem, and I'm not going to be able to be spiritually awakened if I have money, that's a problem. Or I look the opposite side of that. Many of the Indian people, for example, or the Hindus, or certain people who feel as though you cannot have money if you're going to know God. Well, they got just as much of a problem as the one who has to have the money. You got opposite ends of the spectrum. Both are based upon a judgmental mind. Okay? The money's neutral. Right? Money's not good, money's not bad. It's neutral. But if you have a love of money, now you may cheat somebody, you may shoot somebody, you may do whatever because I got to have the money. You might lie.
Somebody might shoot you to get your money.
You might shoot me to get my money. Yeah, well, yeah, whatever. No? Anyway, Yeah, the love that we, or the attachment that we have, the meaning that we give to things, this is the biggest obstacle that's going to stand in the way of us living in the awakened state. And this is one of the reasons why Jesus said this. If you really want to be my disciple, you must forsake everything and everyone, including your mother, your father, your husband, your wife, and your children. Now, just like the money is not a problem, the mother, the father, the husband, the wife, the children is not a problem either. But what is the problem is when we apply a special meaning to that relationship to the point where that person now is so much more important than that person. Right? That's true. We all do this to varying degrees. I mean, who's not loving their own mother more than they love the person across the street? You know, we all do this. And from a spiritual view, it gets in the way. From a human perspective, we're taught this is the thing to do.
You mentioned attachments, and I've read that anything you become attached to will eventually lead to pain. And I had to think about that a long time, but the more I thought about it, I believe that's true. You know, you're attached to your kids, your relatives, so on. Well, you're going to be separated from them at some point. That'll probably lead to pain. You've got a dog, you're going to lose the dog. You've got maybe your house falls out. Anything you're really, really attached to, sooner or later, is probably going to lead to pain. So, you know, from a spiritual point of view, you should not be careful of those attachments and not become so attached to something that it would be painful to lose it. You have to be able to accept things as they are. They change, let them come and go, and that's not an easy thing to do. And I hadn't given it much thought until I read that everything you become attached to eventually leads to pain.
And you're right. And one of the things I've said in the past, and I think is very, very very good to keep in the forefront of the mind. In every given moment, we are experiencing love, which is God. When I say love, I'm talking about agape love. Okay? We're experiencing agape love, or we're experiencing a lesson. And what you just said, Gary, is exactly right. What are we doing in this world? We're here basically to awaken. We've all come into this world to awaken. Now, what is it going to take for us to awaken? Each and every one of us happens to be in a different spot, different particular point in our evolutionary track, or that point within creation. We all have a unique spot where we are. And we all need something just a little bit different than the next in terms of a lesson. We all have different attachments. I personally went through a bankruptcy, and my stuff, my money, everything was gone for a reason. And that reason was to bring me back to the loving state. Somebody else may have an attachment to a person, place, or thing, and that means they have to have that particular moment. Now, again, it's not about a judgmental God that's giving us these experiences. It's not a vengeful God that's going to hurt people intentionally. But it's a loving God. And that's why I said just a little bit ago, the Bible says all things work for good for those who love God. When our focus is on love, unconditional agape love, when that's the intention, then everything that comes our way, every moment, every experience, every person who comes into our path is there as a gift when we can get beyond that judgmental mind. It may be that we have to experience the pain before we can awaken to the gift. And that's up to us. See, the idea is this. Everything is available to us to experience, and God is available for us to experience, but when we choose is up to us. One of the most basic laws, one of those immutable laws that Einstein was talking about, is the law of free will. We have an unconditionally loving God, which means you have free will to choose to experience whatever you want to experience for yourself and take as long as you want and experience as much pain as you want before you wake up. Or you can choose to wake up. And if you wake up, you don't need another lesson. We don't need to create the struggle when we choose to awaken. That's available to us. Most people don't see that we have that option, but it's there.
Bruce, when you're talking about the karmic lessons of good and evil, aren't you really, couldn't you substitute love and fear for good and evil? I mean, I don't really like the word evil.
Well,
You know,
okay.
It's like a judgmental.
Yeah, it is judgmental. You know what? You can't have karma without judgment.
Okay.
Okay?
Not knowing?
Without judgment, you can't have karma. And this is exactly why I said to Gary earlier, and Gary was wondering, when I said, if you are acting from how would I put it? I'm listening to spirit, and I'm interacting in the world. Okay? In that moment, I'm exempt from the karma. Why?
Just state or
It
whatever,
didn't
yeah.
come from me.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, what's going to create karma? I'm going to judge a moment. I'm going to judge it. I'm going to apply a meaning. And now, I'm going to react to my world from my judgmental mind. Okay? Later in the book, I talk about how we can react or interact. React is definitely fear. I'm reacting. The world the United States reacted to 9/11 by going over and dropping some bombs. We reacted in a big way. Well, we're helped along and we're encouraged to be a little fearful. They fed us a little bit more to, you weren't afraid enough, so you had to see we're at level orange, we're at this, and get people all worked up and get them so scared, boom, they'll react. Get anybody scared, and then you corner an animal, get an animal into the corner and get it scared enough, it will react. It'll attack, right? Fear is a motivator.
But sometimes it's not fear, it's lack of education.
Well, lack of education will lead you to fear. I mean, it's always fear-based, but where did the fear originate from? Yes.
There's only love or fear.
There's only love or
One of those
fear.
two. So if you call it ignorance, it's got to be on the fear side. It's not coming from unconditional love.
Exactly.
One or the other.
Exactly. Now, if you're in the unconditionally loving state over here, you're not going to react at all. You may be prompted to interact by spirit. And if you're listening, spirit will tell you exactly what to say, how to say, what to do, when to do. Now that's why the karma doesn't belong to you.
Okay, so what happens if you sit back and you kind of suppress it and you know something's coming at you and you don't want to react and you try real hard not to do anything, and yet the what's coming at you keeps coming and keeps coming, you keep putting it aside, don't want to listen to it, and
Then you move away.
you keep pushing back, and then you go away and it still follows you. What do you do?
Is someone stalking you?
Yeah.
Gotta cut it loose, man.
Yeah.
It's like,
Whew. Yeah.
this is
Well,
I deal with this every day.
in that moment, let spirit guide you, and all I can tell you is
You
just
have no idea how hard it is for me to dig and just not say nothing. And I sit there, they said,
You have
don't
to
say
interact, not
nothing,
react.
don't say nothing. I don't say nothing. Hum a few bars.
there you go. Yeah.
And they still come at you. I'm like, okay, I'm not trying to have anything to do with you right now. I'm in my own space. I'm in my own space. Why are you bothering me still?
Obviously, there's still something there for you.
No.
When the moment is not necessary for you to have that,
It's never
It's not
necessary.
Well, I'm not gonna tell you what should or shouldn't be coming to you.
No,
You know?
it's a person that I'm
Yeah.
talking about, but
Yeah.
when I'm trying to get away from it, they're there.
Yeah.
And I try everything be nice, be nice, be nice.
Mm.
But, you know, I live with this person. I live with this person, and I try to be nice, nice, bend on backwards. Karma's good. I honestly what karma does.
PMS is evil.
Yes, it is. So it
And it
is.
causes worse.
It's worse, but I'm nice about it.
You know, all I can say is ask for guidance and ask the universe to help you. Ask God to help you
Oh, it
by
it already came. It's coming. It's coming.
by orchestrating the movement. And at some point when it's not there, it's not necessary for you, it will be removed.
And I'm trying, and that's why I'm here. I want
Yeah.
to remove it.
Well, you know what?
I need guidance so bad.
You know, all I can say is, quiet the mind and keep surrendering it. When it's not necessary for you to have that moment, it's not going to be there.
So
And I understand your frustration.
So meditation's good.
Meditation is the key.
Okay.
Meditation's always the key. The point being, and I went over this before you got here. I talked about the difference between linear time, which is our evolutionary self, and the spiritual self, which is already perfected. Each of us has that spark within us that we came from, which is perfection. We all have it. The only thing that keeps us from having that experience is our minds, our ego minds. The ego mind is evolving.
Okay.
Okay? The spirit is already there.
It's just waiting.
The spirit's waiting for you. The spirit's waiting for you to wake up. Now, as long as we stay in a limited view of creation, we're going to have experiences. That's what we're doing here. We're all here. Every single one of us is here in this dimension, on this plane, to grow spiritually and to wake up. Now, some people can accept that, and some will reject that. Some will say, "Well, no, you gotta be following Jesus to be saved," and somebody says, "No, you gotta listen to Allah." But regardless as to what they say, forget all that. Remember this: there's one God. You're part of that. You came from that, and that God is perfect. That God's perfect. That God made you perfect. Now, the moment you can accept your perfection, when you can accept your perfection, you have to look at everyone else in the world as a perfected being also.
Even with their flaws.
Even with their flaws. From spirit now, I'm not talking, you don't have to like the personality.
Deal with them.
You don't have to deal with them.
Get your own four radical walls.
Yeah.
Sometimes better to love them from a distance.
Sometimes, you know what? Let me say this. I'm divorced. Okay? I didn't know I was going to get divorced. I thought I was in a marriage. I thought I was going to be married the rest of my life. Well, things happened, things evolved, and I had this epiphany, and all of a sudden I told my wife, well, I don't know what's going to happen with the rest of my life, but I can no longer play the game I was playing. The money is not the end all. The things are not the end all. I have to now commit my life to following where spirit guides me. Well, I don't want to play that game, is what her response. Well, you don't want to play that game. I have to play that game because this is what I came into this world to do. This is what I'm choosing to do. And there is nothing and no one, including her, that I would allow to stand in the way. Now, at the time, my son was 9 years old. And there was a time I would have laid down my life for him in a heartbeat. Okay? But I also looked at him at that moment and said, he's not going to stand in the way of my living for spirit and whatever God, the spirit, the universe wants me to do. Because I love the spirit in him more than I love the personality. His relationship, my relationship to him as my son has to take second position. Mm-hmm. Spirit's first. Mm-hmm. So when I put him in terms of spirit, and I look at you, I look at him, well, wait a minute. What's the difference here? You guys are the same to me. I can't have a special relationship with him anymore if it's going to interfere in my interacting with everyone else.
Okay.
This is what Christ was referring to when he said you must forsake everyone and everything, including your mother, your father, your husband, your wife, and your children. Doesn't mean you stop loving them. I still love my son, of course.
You get it
But
back.
I love the Spirit more.
But you get it back tenfold.
You know, he didn't understand at that moment. 9 years old, after my divorce with my wife, and I dropped him off on a Sunday night, and he's crying, you know, Dad, please don't leave, please don't leave. Well, you know what? At first, my heart's getting ripped out. Oh, I gotta leave my son here. Then my wife, ex-wife, she gets, you know, she's got some other guy living in the house, and he's calling him Dad, and you know, and I'm looking at this kind of strange situation. But from the Spirit, I looked at the perfection. It was perfect. It is perfect. It's a painful experience for us to let go of our personality selves. And it's going to be a unique pain for each and every one of us. And we're going to have unique experiences, each and every one of us. Our encounters are going to be unique to us. What you're experiencing, no, I can't say I know what you're going through. Nor could you say you know what I'm going through, or Gary went through, or he's going through, and we're all unique in that way. But I can say this, we're all unique, but we're also all here to do the same job, and that is wake up. Now, one thing that you can count on is the universe, with its immutable laws, has an omniscient view to give you a perfected experience. Now, you either believe that or you don't. But the truth of the matter is, it's true. It's there. Okay? If you're having an experience, now I'm not telling you that you're having an experience and that you should say, oh, this is perfect, I'm going to stay with this for the rest of my life. No! Don't get me wrong. I'd still, you know, my wife did come to me at one point and say this, well, I don't love you anymore. I love Robert, which was my ex-partner now. I love Robert, and I don't want to really divorce you, but I don't ever want to be intimate with you again. I don't want to. You know what? I don't think this is going to work. You know, I'd say, you know what? Let's just go ahead and get the divorce. Go our separate ways. I'll always love you. And that was that. Okay? But just because I loved her, just because I see that the universe is giving me a perfected moment, that doesn't mean that, oh, I'm going to listen to her and do whatever she wants to do and stay, oh, I'm going to stay married so, you know, to the world she can have this picture. No. Obviously, in that moment, the universe was saying to me, I guess it's time for you to have a different relationship. Now, she's my ex-wife. Fine. You know, and we go through pain as this transition takes place.
To me, that was a little bit like an awakening.
It wasn't it was kind of an awakening. The awakening happened before that, or I wouldn't have realized what was going on in that moment, and thank God I had that. If I didn't have that, I probably, you know, it would have been a little bit even more difficult than it was. Because I went through a business breakup, a divorce, and the bankruptcy altogether. You know, and it was perfect. I can look at it today and I'll say this, I wouldn't trade one moment, and I think if each of us look back on our lives and honestly looked at, I wouldn't trade one moment of that which I've experienced up till now. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to stay stuck and keep going where I am. Trust the universe to supply you with what you should be getting. Yeah. Surrender the path. But always recognize and allow change to come.
All right.
Okay? Allow it. Don't try to fight. You know, Rumi said, that which we resist persists. You resist something, and you're creating an energy that's going to keep it coming. Don't resist it. Just open up and let the universe take care.
It's also been said that which you resist becomes stronger.
It does.
The more,
No question.
the more you resist, keep it stronger and stronger fight.
Because it's just like in the Matrix. If you're resisting, you're going to continue to resist.
Well,
And it just grows more and more.
remember this. Every given moment, awake and asleep, if unconditional love, agape love, is God, and that's our perfected spiritual self, you can't experience that if fear is the motivator. You can't. And here I am in any given moment. Let's just forget all the past. Let's say, here we are. Here's where I am. Now, right now, I got a very judgmental mind.
Bad Bruce.
Whatever I'm judgmental about, I don't know at this moment. We're not going to say what it is, but I got a judgmental mind, and that judgment is energy I'm throwing out to the universe. And here, that means I'm resisting. I'm resisting whatever is in the moment. I'm resisting it, and that is the energy that's going to bring me an experience.
That's my sister.
It has to work for all of us this way.
The identity.
That's the immutable law. In the now moment, and now always is. Now always is. Now, okay, that was a second ago. I just had an epiphany. Holy shit, I'm in charge. Okay, I'm gonna wipe out this fear. Now, here I am, I got a new moment. It's coming from love. I just surrender everything. I give it to God. I'm yours. Now, you see the new energy I just put out? Now what's coming to me? A different experience, isn't it? Has to. But here's the problem. I don't trust that the universe and God's going to give me my perfected state. Perfection. I just called for perfection when I asked and I put out unconditional love. You know what's going to happen most likely? I'm not going to believe this. So, I'm going to change my mind and I'm going to be afraid again. Holy shit, I can't trust it. Guess what? I stopped this before it even started. Now what happens? My fear replaced it and it's coming back. See, I knew I couldn't trust.
Right.
I was right. It happens over and over again. I mean, this is just the way creation works. It works like this over and over and over. It will work like that every time. The Bible says, as you believe, so shall it be. As you believe. We can't get beyond our beliefs. No one can. You can change your belief. If you don't change your belief, that saying that says the definition of insanity.
Yeah, what I call it repeat the cycle.
Yeah, definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result. That's insanity.
Yeah.
That'll never happen.
Yep.
It's never gonna happen. You get caught in that loop, and guess what? It's coming over and over and over until no, there will be some point. Gary brought it up at one point. Gary said, everything's going to bring you pain at some point. When the pain gets to be intolerable, you at that point will finally surrender your attachment to keeping it alive. Yeah. Oh.
Okay.
Because remember this, the universe is there to agree with you. That's hard for us to accept. Whatever you believe, the universe is there to agree with you and support your belief.
Oh. Okay.
The Bible says, as you believe, so shall it be. Right?
So it is written.
The universe only says yes.
Only says yes.
Yes. Whatever you want.
Yes. And now, that's the simplified version of what's going on. Now we also, if you're going to be stuck in the cycles, then we throw karma into this. And there is the evolutionary aspect of this being factored into your moments.
But see, I think if you threw out to the universe 100%, like, this is my goal, you don't doubt for a second, like, if you say I want to make X amount of dollars, it's a bad economy, you don't doubt
You'll get it.
You'll get
Oh,
it.
you absolutely will get it. Now, there may be an outcome that you didn't think about after you get what you asked for. Okay? There are things that will come as a result of that which you requested.
Like the IRS or...
Well, whatever. or like, let's say, I'm going to just do some stupid thing and
I'll
say,
tell you what,
Tell them.
last year I prayed for fast money and I got in a car accident.
there you go.
So
Yeah, good insurance company,
So
huh?
this year I said, Lord, I want some really fast money, but please, I don't want to be injured. So I got myself some other apartments where I've got commissions coming from.
That's a little safer.
Well, again, that movie, what was it? It was either Beguiled or,
I haven't seen it.
was it Beguiled?
That's true about me. At first I prayed it, and then I said, no accident, I want to,
You
And
gotta
then I
be
said,
specific.
And I said, if you train me, I'll train others. So I spread it.
Okay. No, and it's true. The universe will definitely give you what you're calling for. Most of the time, unfortunately, there's very, very few of in this that I've encountered or in this world that have that omniscient view that we could get very specific with what we're asking for.
I believe that the universe has humor.
Oh, there's no question. Where do you think you got your humor
Man
from?
plans and God
You know-
laughs.
I mean, there is when you look at what the universe is, and later in the book I'm going to talk about what the Trinity is and what God is. And I said God is a formless consciousness, okay, and not one thing can exist that is not part of God. If you look at God as being the summation of the whole, including what we would call the material universe, all matter, all energy, everything, and you looked at that as a universal consciousness, all interconnected. Well, where did humor come from? I mean, God is humorous. Of course God's humorous. Why are you laughing? Of course, because we are God in expression. There's not one person that's not part of that is. And if they're humorous, God's humorous. I mean, we can't create anything. Everything is there for us to experience. But we don't make anything. This point right here, and this is very hard for us as a human linear thinker. But here we are at this particular point in time. What can we call for? Megan talked about calling for, I don't know, money from heaven. Okay? Well, could we? Of course we could. Somebody else, I want that boat. Okay, they can call for that boat. Somebody else, I want to be, I don't know, I want a promotion at work. I want peace, whatever. But the idea is, each and every one of us, at any given moment, at any given point in time, can call for something. Everything's in infinite potentiality at any given moment. And so, to answer the original question about what's going on in the world, are we as a collective consciousness of this planet contributing and bringing about what's happening in the world? Yes. Yes, we are. Are we totally awake to that? No. Most of the people are so oblivious to the power. You want to talk about power? We are powerful beings. Each and every one of us. Unfortunately, we've been taught to think small. We've been taught to look at ourselves as human beings, and we've been taught to live in fear. We've been taught to live in fear because it's easier to control somebody when they're in fear.
Sleep.
Asleep. Keep them asleep. Keep them ignorant.
I'm only human.
I'm only human. Yeah. No. The first thought should be, I'm spirit. First thought should be what Jesus said, I and the Father are one. I'm one with my Father, aren't you? If you're not one with your Father, you better open up and realize, wait a minute, there's something wrong with your thinking. something wrong with your thinking if you don't see you're one with the Father, because guess what? God's everything and everyone. Who's exempt? Don't exempt yourself. This is, now, when you recognize that, when I see I'm one with the Father, now I have to honor each of you as being one with the Father. Whether you know it or not, that's irrelevant. What is relevant is I know it. Because if I know it, I can stay centered, and I can listen, and I can stay away from your judgments. Your judgment, and this is why Paul said, your judgments don't touch me, because I don't judge myself. If I don't judge myself, your judgments can't touch me. Earlier we just read, just before you got in here, the Bible talks about, don't fear the man who can kill the body, but fear the man who can kill the body and soul and leave you in hell. You're being, from what I hear, you're being given an opportunity to stay centered in a very difficult situation. My advice would be, bless that moment. Give thanks for the gift and the opportunity to be tried.
To move forward.
Because that's what this is about. You're being, not just that one incident. You know, we're all being tried. That's the beauty, that's the gift. Namaste. That's what you want to talk about what this life, the gift of this life is about? That's what it's about. This is an opportunity, right here, right now. Now, you may reject that and walk out the door and say, I don't believe that. That sounds like bullshit to me. But it's true. And if you remember it tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, we are all evolving or experiencing perfection. You know, Jesus said, be perfect. Bless you. How many believe they could be perfect? Huh? You believe you are perfect?
Not are.
You have not walked on
Okay.
water, Chris.
No, I can't walk on water. Trust me, that's not gonna happen. But in the future, maybe.
Let me say this.
Darn, you got a long way to
Well, I
go.
can't walk on water. Doesn't mean I'm floating, but I can walk on water.
I saw those shoes they used to sell.
I was gonna